Architecture, Spaces, and Sustainability. And later on, there will be the second speaker of us from Indonesia. He's the practitioner, architect, and urban planner, Mr. Sibarani Sofian, MUDD, B.Sc, LEEDAP, and IAI. He will share to us about the Indonesian perspective of architecture, spaces, and sustainability too. He was the winner of the new capital city in Indonesia. Okay, as I stated before, my name is Lia. Probably some of you haven't noticed yet. I'll be your host for this event from 1 p.m. or 9 a.m. to for 2 hours. In this semester, there are two joint studios running. First is the architectural design studio we're joining right now. And then, okay, to start this session, I would like to invite Assistant Professor Dr. Hakki and Ozkan to share the experience. Please, Dr. Hakki, the screen is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to all of you. Firstly, I try to sharing my screen. Okay, did I manage it? Can you see?
Yep, it's clear.
Okay, okay. Before starting, I want to say my thanks to you, the University Islam of Indonesia, and our University Fatih Sultan Mehmet Vakıf University to invite me this event. Actually, it's really marvelous stuff, except from the coronavirus and pandemic times, to share our knowledge and try to combine a bond between two universities. Actually, this is why, first of all, I would like to say my thank you to invite me here. After that, today I'm going to present something about sustainability and what happened in Turkey about sustainability. By the way, except from my identity of academician, actually, I'm also a registered independent architect, a professional in Istanbul, in Turkey. So in the further phase of my presentation, I try to show you how an Turkey-based architect thinking about sustainability while designing his project. Actually, we are in our except from I'm talking about except from my academic title, we are about 10 people in Istanbul in our office, and we are really keen on participating some competitions and using our knowledge about sustainability. So I'm going to also explain our experience about designing that conceptual sustainability also. Okay, if I start. Okay, everything is okay. My connection is flawless.
Yes, Hocam.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, first of all, I want to make a very comprehensive framework of the sustainability by explaining its definitions. Actually, there are two references I would like to mention about, maybe to the all our other audiences. First of all, is limits of growth, an independent club actually, or from it's not a soccer club actually, happened in Rome actually. The Club of Rome is actually established in the 60s, 1960s, and a group of academicians, philosophers, and some people who's caring about environment, and they try to put a perspective to us to show how we consume our planet actually by doing some experiments, doing some trying to show us with some graphics, and it's actually very brilliant publication after that club established actually. It's called The Limits of Growth. I think if you are interested with this kind of topics like sustainability, ecology, or consuming or producing of the whole planet, especially after the industrial revolution, I strongly recommend you to investigate about this book. The second references actually is very related also with my academic studies, academic work, is United Nations Environment Program. This program has established also 1972 in Stockholm. Actually, it's establishing happened with conferences. It's called also 1972 Stockholm Environment Program Conference. This conference has actually very special place in sustainability because it is the first time with a very widely participating all countries registered to the United Nations could talk about sustainability, ecology, and the situation of the planet. Actually, this is why it's one of the milestone how the all the world trying to thinking about or maybe rethinking about sustainability in a very comprehensive perspective. This is why these two references is always one of my guides actually. Okay, then while we are talking about sustainability, if you Google it or if you try to search where it's come from, actually sustainability word or the concept is actually born with the whole humanity, all mankind, because it means to sustain something, you know. But we derive that as sustainable architecture or sustainable fashion, sustainable economy, sustainable development. But in the first time, it has mentioned in a regular, registered, and official document called Our Common Future. It's also happened after conferences held by the World Commission, and the name of the conference is World Commission on Environment and Development. And the president of the commission is previous Prime Minister of Norwegian, Gro Harlem Brundtland. So this outcome of the conference also called as Brundtland Report. When you check to the internet or other sources, you will find it's with its name Brundtland. Okay, it's also held in 1987, and the report defined actually sustainable development as its own word, development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Actually, this is very, very generative and very generic definition of sustainability we accept as academicians. So while we are go to the other slide, you will also find actually that's all very basic and general informations about sustainability, but then you can really easily find the three branches of sustainability. Actually, in lots of studies and research, you can easily find that three branches while you're studying on sustainability. Because to sustain mankind or to sustain the planet, we need that three branches, and that's our social perspective, economical perspective, and environmental perspective. Without one of them, actually, you couldn't manage to sustain the whole planet and the whole mankind. This is why this three part is really strongly bound with the others, actually. Okay, that was actually my introducing how we define, how we mention about the sustainability in an academic way. But what happened in Turkey about it? While we are checking, I'm going to explain you three very common and well-known, famous example happened in Turkey. And then, if we have time, I'll try to explain my perspective, how I look to sustainability as an architect to design while designing a project, actually. Okay, one of the very well-known and very famous project, also it's called as a sustainable project, is Safir Tower. It's happened in Istanbul. Maybe if you visit Istanbul, you will heard about it, because it is for a long time the tallest building in Istanbul. Just a couple of years ago, another building has get this record from it. And its architect is Tabanlıoğlu. It's also a very well-known architecture office for a long time. Okay, while they are designing this project, actually, one of the important stuff is when you design a tower, a tall building in Istanbul, the main purpose is to get the vista, to get the scenery, actually. This is why it is very common to cover the towers in Istanbul with the glass facade. But the problem is Istanbul is actually getting every year by the global warming, getting much more warmer and hotter, especially in the summertime. This is why we are not recommend to the architects or designer to cover the whole facade with the glass, totally glass, actually, glass material. But in that project, architect tried to this advantage to its own advantage by designing two facades, actually, and we call it the double facade. And between that double facade, the two facades, they trying to organize some common spaces, and it's also with his word, architect's word, it's also just cause a regular neighborhood, actually, neighborhood shape, actually, by the same time. And also, even you are in the 30th floor or 40th floor, you can also planting something also, you can vegetate something also. And that two facade also has some opportunity to keep the building warm in the winter time and a little bit cooler in the summertime. That's, you can also check it in internet or its architect website also. Okay, the other is maybe it is one of the first sustainable I mean, big sustainable and famous project in Turkey. But nobody, not so many people knows about it actually. But its architect is Alejandro Zeropolo. In that time, while he designing that building, the office name is FOA, but then they split up, and I think he established a new office. But I don't know its exact name. It's a combination of initials. It's very interesting, a weird name. Okay, this is in Anatolian side of Istanbul, the Asian part of Istanbul, and it's a shopping mall center. But it is when he designing that one, it's not so common to make an open shopping malls in Istanbul, because while we are talking about shopping malls, we are all have an image that you go inside a really big building and it's all indoor facilities, it's indoor spaces. But in the first time, he tried to one of his experiment here to make the shopping mall something like a public square. Actually, this is why also we call its name square shopping mall. Meydan means a square, a public square in Turkish. And why we call it sustainable? Actually, it's not because of its green roof, because maybe the less sustainable part is green roof, because people couldn't use it. This green roof's purpose is maybe just reflect the sunlight and provide some isolation, heat isolation for the spaces. But the main sustainability is about to gather the people together, especially in the weekends. We can call here something like a social sustainability, because normally it's not a regular.
Ini apa anjir? Musuh darah Prof. Man, kamu masih bisa lihat aku nggak?
Sorry. And also it is one of the first project use the heat pump, using the soil energy for warming, for heating the whole spaces. Actually, this is why it's called sustainability also. Okay, the other and maybe the last example of famous project in Istanbul especially is Küçükçekmece municipality building. It's a municipality building. It's an office building. Küçükçekmece is one of the districts in Istanbul. And Mi'ar architecture is its architects. They are the architects. And also we call it the first sustainable governing building in Istanbul, also maybe in Turkey, I don't know. Its aim, while the architect designing this one, he trying to lots of passive systems by putting some double facade to control the sun shading, the green roof you can see here, and I know there are lots of active systems also. Maybe after me the other representative going to explain something about maybe LEED or other stuff. I have just checked while I'm checking the poster. There is also a title about LEED or something else. It's one of that project we are thinking about, one of the famous in Istanbul. Okay, actually this tree project is famous, and it seems really sustainable by just checking its a green roof or double facade or other stuff. But when we go back again, sustainability has actually always, should actually always three branches to sustain the social perspective and economic perspective also, apart from the environment perspective. Actually, as a group of architects, we call ourselves COFACT architects. We are trying to use that three branches in our projects, in our experiment. Actually, there are also a very good platform to practice our experiences is always about competitions, actually, and national or international competitions, sometimes invited competitions. Okay, I'm going to right now explain about our perspective on sustainability. While we are thinking about it, always we try to find, according to project, according to demanding project, what kind of a branches of that scheme, that diagram, we can implement the design. And while we're thinking about it, there are some concepts we have found, and we call them flexibility, modularity, economic development, publicity, bioclimated design, where nuclearity is one of important that we interest so much, and energy efficiency maybe the last one. When you make your project flexible, while you're designing flexible, then its lifetime goes longer, actually, because it can turn into something else. So it can sustain itself with the new situations, maybe according to the seasons, maybe according to the political situations, or even the function can be changed. This is why flexibility is important for us. And modularity is also very important because it's directly interesting with prices, estimated costs, and about the producing. And also economic development is one of the important part because any project cannot manage to be economic. It couldn't sustain forever. That kind of concepts, actually, we are always thinking about while we're designing projects. Okay, for each title, I have some examples. Actually, I have 8 or 9 examples, but the moderators can stop me. Maybe I can explain 2 or 3 of them. Okay, actually, I sorry about not to translate all the readings, all the text in English, because it's going to be really huge effort for me. I'm sorry about it, but I'm trying to explain the main idea of the project. Okay, while we are thinking about the flexibility, we got here a competition project, and its topic is about designing a caretta turtle hospital, actually, and a visitor center, something else. In Turkey, in the south part of the Turkey, there is a really famous beach that all that caretta turtles can bring their eggs into the sands of the beach, and it's under the protection of the government. And in that beach, actually, there are also something like a very old hospital for them to for rehabbing their wounds or experiments or researching something about that caretta turtles, actually. And the topic of the competition is designing a new and a sustainable hospital and visitor center for that caretta turtles. But the main challenge is the place, the area that it was given is between a hill and the beach side. It says something like a really interesting ecosystem part. And we think about that if we have something like a junction area, that there is really a straight line to cut the three different ecosystem. So we said that in that design, okay, in the hill part, we're going to put the hospital with its all restricted areas. You cannot change actually because it's a hospital. But on the beach side, there is something like a visitor center, and it should founded on the sand on the beach. And because of the seasons, because of the time of using the beach, it should have transformed, because summer is very crowded in that area, especially some people also come here for the tourism to use the sea and the sand and the sun. But in the winter time, some activists is coming here for making some events about the tortoise actually. And our proposal is about proposing a very flexible visitor center. And the hospital's main material is stone. Actually, it's also coming from the very close quill, stone quill. And in the beach side, we are using very light material as a structure, and all cladding as wooden material. And that wooden material is actually very flexible. It can change, transform, move the whole panel walls, and change according to the season, according to the usage capacity. Especially in winter, it's getting much more compact because there are less people visit the facilities. But in summertime, it can extend it with its different functions. It gives that opportunity and make its lifetime much more sustained. Actually, this is the main theme, main idea of the project. Okay, the other topic we are also thinking about so much about modularity, because we believe that it comes from the manufacturing, producing the materials, and it's also very strongly related with economical development. One of the important points that we always thinking about. Here is a kindergarten project that also we designed for the Istanbul municipality, and we are still negotiate about the project to build it in a different district of the different region of Istanbul. And sometimes from the other cities municipality comes some invitation to build that idea in their cities also. Actually, the main demanding question problem is like that. The municipality want us to design a kindergarten, but the problem is they're going to build it in a maybe hundreds of times in a different region of the Istanbul. So the problem is, okay, it's going to be something like a prototype kindergarten, but in each region has different needing. Actually, some region has lots of people want to bring their children or babies to the kindergarten, but some district has not so much they don't need to so many capacity for the kindergarten, because when you also make very large kindergarten in a very for a very small group, then it's also it couldn't sustain its own lifetime, because then they're going to turn it something else, or their expenses coming from the managing the whole building getting so large, and it's also not going to be sustainability. So we try to found actually the idea to make it modular, and for each space in the kindergarten, we try to create something like a container mind, modular, still structured boxes. And these boxes can come together according to the demanding size of and demanding capacity of the kindergarten in different regions. And then we established some examples. There are 3 examples of all different capacities kindergartens. Okay. One of the important concept that also we are talking about. I'm also checking my time. I think it can be the last example I can explain. That if you wonder about our practice, also you can follow our website or Instagram accounts. For the economic development, actually, 1 year ago we have invited competition in Libya, in Tripoli, to make the first indoor garage, indoor car parking building in Tripoli, actually, especially in the whole Libya. And the problem was they just asked us to create a garage building, a car parking building, and something like maybe a corner of the building can be used as an office or other stuff to gain much more money by renting or selling some office spaces. So we think about it's not so logic to build in the center of the Tripoli, in the center of something like an indoor garage, because it has no relation between the people and relation between the gaining some money, actually, because it's just a garage, you know. But the exciting point is this project
multiple scale of a region, which is 256,000 hectares, which is in the scale of 6 cities of Jakarta and the surrounding, the metropolitan Jakarta. And then there's another scale of 56,000, which is a scale of the capital city of Jakarta today. And then another scale of 6,000 hectares. 6,000 hectares is a scale of a city in Indonesia. That is usually we have at least 1 million or 2 million people in it. So the one that you see right now is when we were launched, when we were acknowledged as a first winner, and our scheme is called Negara Limbanusa. Negara stands for the city, or the town, and the government. It's actually come from Sanskrit. I don't know how far the Sanskrit reached to Turkey or not. It reached up to India, but I don't think it goes that far to Turkey. Yeah. So it is a representation of our presence of the government, presence of identity and character. And then we have also the second word, rimba. Rimba is called, it means a dense forest and a jungle. Why we call it rimba? Because we are building in Borneo, and I think you probably know Borneo better than other islands. Yeah, Borneo is where we, you know, probably the movie King Kong. Kong came from, I mean, the last edition of King Kong. The King Kong came from this island. It's actually densely forested, so it is very important for us to address the fact that you are building in the middle of nature. Although the site that we are choosing is not necessarily a primary forest, it's actually a production forest. Yeah. So a lot of our narratives has to be derived from that. And the third word is Nusa. Nusa means archipelago and island. Us, Indonesia, as the largest archipelago country in the world, and I think we are proud of it. It is part of our identity, and it is also part of our symbol of the diversity that we have, that really needs to be encapsulated in our plans. And we really want to have this spirit of diverse and also naturalistic, and we try to capture that into our plan. So that Negara Rimba Nusa, in the beginning, we enter the competition with showing that several of our plans shows the scale and also the places where we can identify our national identity. We put in, we have the 5 principle, we call it Pancasila, which is the sort of like the guidelines for us when we live up to our values, including like the belief in one God, and then we also have the humanity, we have also the unity, we have a democracy, and we have also social welfare for people, which we put it into a lake. There's certain area in here where we have as a lake that we can collect all the values into something that we can relate as a place. So it is trying to create identity, a national symbolism, but then we try to create a placemaking to it, so people can really relate to what we are talking about. And we also have 17,000 islands, and we have few hundreds language and also thousands of tribes, yeah, which we need to represent those diversity into a place that we can unite ourselves. That we have a verb called Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity in diversity. So we create a plaza that create that kind of notions, which we put it into one of the axes. And then we have also the cultural plaza of the statue. We have a lot of our arts craftsmen make a very excellent statue in Indonesia. Like a lot of people from Bali are known for this craftsmanship. We want to display it into a space, in a place that we put it at we call it Plaza Adikarya, or the masterpiece plaza, where we can put in our highest form of art, which we thought that the civilization of the country is not necessarily how big is the money that you're making, or how big of your army. It's also how well your culture being accepted by many people and being appreciated. So we have this we call it masterpiece plaza, so where we can put our cultural works. And also, of course, the palace. The palace, we still try to kind of like toying with the idea of what would be our palace look like. Is it going to be look like a White House like in America, or is it going to look like the one in probably Astana, yeah, the one that looks like very look like a palace like. But we think that the Indonesian palace for Indonesian country, because we have very distinct roof looking, yeah. So the roof in Indonesia is we have thousands of kind of roof, but they all have a very unique roofscapes, which we think that we cannot pick one of them, but we want to we want to use this sort of appreciation, that the fact that we are having a variety of roof, but then it needs to be combined together, that we cannot distinguish which one is coming from. So you know that a roof from Sumatra, roof from Papua, roof from Lombok, or the Java is very different each other, but then it is something that telling us that this is Indonesian. So yeah, this is part of our first original journey, but we will show you later what the next development after that. Yeah. So the second message of after the nationalism or this ideal symbology is the principle of sustainability. So one thing that we want to do is not to just build the building first, because the first thing that normally any development will do is create a road, create a platform for development, create a building, and then you start to remove a lot of the nature. So what we want to do is to start with developing the scheme for the forest, because the site that we are choosing and a lot of the area in East Kalimantan is actually a production forest. Production forest stands for eucalyptus or the acacia, any forest that is production, yeah, that we take all the crops and then we sell it for yield for every year. But then after a couple years, we have to replant it again, and then after a couple years again, you take it out again. So what we want to do is to bring it back to the natural condition again, because it used to be a primary forest, and it takes thousands or hundreds of years to actually have this kind of forest. And when somebody come in and then change it into a production forest, which is monoculture, it tend to take a long time to come back to the natural state. So what we have now is to create that kind of narrative that we have to protect whatever that we have still existing. We want to restore that is missing. It takes probably 100 years, but then you better start now. You need to reconnect the habitat corridor. A lot of the corridor right now is disconnected because of this production forest, especially when it comes to the type of forest that is very self-centered. Yeah, things like palm oil. Palm oil is actually good, very good in the economic point of view, but it is not very friendly to all the other ecosystem in the forest in East Kalimantan, especially. So we found several of the palm oil that actually try to cut all the water supply to just to give to themselves, which is very disruptive to the existing condition now. So what we want to do is to reconnect that, to break that kind of barrier, opening it up, and choose the area that is already destroyed, and we recover it again. And we also found that a lot of the waste from the production forest is taken for granted. We could actually use the waste of the production forest into energy. So we think that there is what we call the energy forest, the forest that can create energy for alternative energy, especially from the biofuels. And the last one is to create the pioneering forest research in the world. We think that this is something that President Joko Widodo is also committed to do, that we want to we want to become the leading country for tropical forest research in the world. So before going too far, thinking about where is the city, where is the plan, where is this capital building, where is all the houses or the business CBD, etc., we look at the site, which is kind of like natural or green, and we want to create a theme for the forest first. So we try to create a biomass forest, protected forest, which is already there, which we want to emphasize. Natural forest, restored forest, botanical garden, mangroves. These things is identified first, and we set it up for 70% of that area to be more in the forest area, which is 126,000 hectares. And we only try to develop 30% out of it, which is where we only build where it's necessary, where it's actually relevant, and we don't want to scatter it all over all the other place. We want to create what we call polycentric thematic clusters. So we don't want to create sprawling. We combine, we put them into a polycentric sort of like accumulation of city, but then interconnected into satellites. And each of that is really connected to by road and public transport. And we try to have 5 satellite clusters, teaming from the innovation, high-tech, wellness city, education, and sports city, where the one in the middle is our government center. So with this, we have 1.25 million target population. And this area is actually the same size of Jakarta, but we are doing it at the opposite. Jakarta has 11 million people, and 90% of the area is fully built. It's only 9% of greenery left in the city. Now in here, we do 70% of the area green and only build 30%, and we only build it for, I think, 1/10 of the population of Jakarta. So it's kind of like going to be lower density. It's not going to be too high density, but then we created a very compact and integrated living. And one of the principles that we also put into the proposal was what we call biomimicry. We make an hypothesis that if we were to learn from nature and how we can build our city and build environment using the learning lessons from the nature, because I think we are now already too far from the wisdom of our nature. Yeah, like for example, a lot of our cities in the past, we respect the what we call the relationship between man, God, and nature, and we don't build too tall. Like for example, in Bali, we respect not to build more than coconut trees, and we are not building on the slope because it has potential for sliding, etc., etc. But people tend to forget that. In the modern world, we use engineering solution to defy the natural state. So what we try to do now is to turn it back again. We try to look at how, if the forest give us certain wisdom, for example, the emergence, the top area is for us to harness energy. We should probably use our rooftop also for our PV, yeah, photovoltaic, or we can also use some of the opening for introducing the wind, and also introducing the natural climatic condition. And then we also use the branches, for example, and the branches between the animal use the branches in the forest because they don't need to go down to the ground floor again, and they can save from anything from the predator animal at the base. So we can use the second or the third or the fourth level connection between buildings that connect between one tower to another, reducing our necessity to go down to the ground level. And sometimes, we have a building next to each other in Jakarta. We take probably half an hour just to go down, go out to our security door, getting checked out, and then getting into another building, check in again, and go up again, waiting for the escalator to go up, just to go to the next door, to have probably 15 minutes talk. So we waste a lot of time just to travel between buildings, just because we don't want to connect to each other. And that's something that we want to bring into the principle of our new city. We want to transform the way of living of people working, living, and staying in here, to become more interconnected, to save more energy, to create more efficient development. And of course, at the ground level, you know that the buttress roots and also the forest floors is where all kinds of minerals, all kind of vegetation, all kinds of animals passing through. This is where we think that our ground level needs to be also porous, needs to be able to water and wind and animals, or any kind of activity should happen on the ground floor and flowing freely. So we create what we call a piloty concept. So we built the city slightly raised. And this is useful because we are actually building into the area that has a very sensitive ground. And we think that by using light structures, that we can reduce the impact of the footprint into the ground. Now, this is something that I want to show you. For the students probably in UII, you already seen the competition boards, yeah? So you've seen some of the scheme, but this is something that probably special for you guys, because we haven't really shown this to anybody yet. So a lot of this is actually new, but please take this as a confidential. Don't spread it around, because I think this is something that will be released soon. But then we are still keeping it in our office. So yeah, for those who want to, I apologize. The sequence of this presentation is a little bit of awkward, yeah, because for those who doesn't understand where the site is and where the city around it, the location of our Ibu Kota is actually near Balikpapan. Balikpapan is an oil and gas service city of Kalimantan. Samarinda is also another city administrative and also the manufacturing. And the Ibu Kota Negara, or the capital city, is located slightly to the west of the toll road connecting Samarinda and Balikpapan, is in the Pasir Penajam Kabupaten, yeah, the Regency of Pasir Penajam. Mostly greenery. It's only a few hundred kampung in there, villages, yeah. So we have a population about 100,000 currently, but then it's scattered in a very vast, big area. So we think that the capital city this is something that after the development of our national competition, we were asked by the Ministry of PUPR to join in the collaborative team with Bapnas, the planning departments, and also with Tata Ruang, the spatial ministry, to identify the regional connectivity and also to create a master plan for the development. So the Balikpapan, Samarinda, and the capital city will work hand in hand as a core of, first is a petrochemical for Balikpapan and logistical muscles, and Samarinda as energy and existing center for East Kalimantan, and the capital city as a nerve center and a green innovation center, be it for the government, for the education, for the health, economy, and entertainment and innovation and research. So what we have before in here, which is the winning scheme, where we see our capital city is so near to the water, so near to the Balikpapan Bay, surrounded by the natural mangrove and waterway, and this enhances our notion as a archipelago city, yeah, because we want to be close and near to the water, near to the ocean, showcasing our ability to become a nation that is familiar and very near to the ocean and maritime issues. We are one of the country that is actually archipelago, but we are not very strong in our maritime, and we are not really living near to the coast. But there is a reason for that. Yeah, one of the reason is we are asked to move the city slightly to the upper side, yeah, because there is an issue of sea level rising, and we are also moving up to the area that is less sensitive, because the area near the coastal is apparently mangrove. So we follow that, and we start to move the location slightly on the higher ground, yeah, and then we start to this is something what I will explain to you more about the current state of our plan, yeah. So we start with creating the city near to the hill. So we push it up to the hill, and then we start to create still we use the same symbol, which is the axis of, we call it the nationalism axis, where we celebrate the relation between God, man, and nature. And God is symbolized by the hill. And a lot of our city has this kind of axial relationship, where we have the axis towards either a mountain or either to the north, yeah, which is symbolizing the certain things that we beyond man, which is beyond our power. And then usually the middle part is where the human relationship, where we call it the city, yeah, where human try to create a relationship with the nature and also with God. And then we have the southern part. Apparently our southern area is actually all the nature. So we have this axis where we put in all our nationalistic symbol, like the Independence Hill, the Alun-Alun, the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika Plaza, the Palace, and the Democracy Plaza, into a long linear line that end up at the nature, where we celebrate our 5 principles in a setting of, originally we put it as a lake, now we put it as a eco park. And we celebrate the relationship between man, God, and nature in this so-called, I would say, ideology axis, yeah. And then the second axis that we have is the fact that we are, we call it a trias politica, yeah, we have executive, judicative, and legislative. And this is where the three government arms work hand in hand together with the people representative and judiciary system. And in Jakarta right now, when we want to meet from one minister to another.
Thank you, Mr. Sibarani, for the presentation, and for Dr. Hakki Ozkan too about the presentation later. And I may recall some question and respond. May we proceed to the discussion session. The first one will be from Mas Rafif Salfala. I will read it first, and if you, Mas Rafif, the student would like to express it by himself, so it will be yours, the time. So the question from Mas Rafif Salfala is maybe to Dr. Hakki. What are the stages of the construction of a new capital city? Oh, sorry, this one is for Pak Sibarani.
Yes.
But is the construction process environmentally friendly? Yeah. And then there are maybe we should recall it all of it from Pak Wing Raharjo, Dr. Wing, Dr. Wiryono Raharjo. Thank you, Dr. Ozkan, for the inspiring presentation. My rather general question is, how does the concept of sustainability is absorbed by the local community? Do they show it in their daily life, or does the authority needs to give more push to make them more aware of it? That will be the question for Dr. Hakki. And then the next one will be from Sare Ostuk. And then thank you for the educatory presentation, Professor. I have a question too. We all know the importance of sustainable building, but we also see that it's not yet widespread enough. What do you think is the most important step that can be taken to popularize it? Okay, that's an interesting question. Can redesign city halls, as you show in the example, throughout the country be a step forward? That will be the question for Dr. Hakki. And maybe Pak Sibarani can respond to about the question. I guess this one is quite general actually. And then the last one is from Endah Kurnia. I have question about biomimicry concept. Maybe this one is for Pak Sibarani. How do you make sure it can work on your project? Because the subject is different. For example, the site of nature system have cells and animals as the subject, but the site of the project have totally different subject. What kind of research can we do? But Endah, maybe you may develop the question later, yeah? Okay, maybe that's for the first session, maybe.
Okay,
Sibarani, maybe you can respond first. Yeah, Sibarani,
okay.
please.
So I think the first question, I will respond to the question about how sustainable is the development, yeah.
Yep.
In terms of the construction, yeah. So this is the I mean, I think Rafif asking a very spot on question, because if you look closely, we didn't really talk about how to construct it. It just looked like the finished state will be like this, right? It is very true that during the construction, the problem with opening up a forest is never been adapted condition of a building, yeah. And this is something interesting when we start to realize when we talk with our geologists. When an area that is never been built, the soil is not ready for development yet. So you need to wait. You need to start conditioning the land. You need level of command. You need to do some stabilization, allowing the soil to breathe, and then only we can start to build in. So if we don't do that, then we have a condition what we call swelling. So when we do a construction that is too quick, that is, we just cut it open and then we just do a demolition. I mean, do a bulldozing of the land here and there. Then the soil is not stable. So the most sustainable way to do it is to wait until the land is settled and then we can start building it slowly, and then we minimize as much as possible the opening. We call it kapan, yeah, the bukaan, the opening of the land. And with that, you cannot force the development to be in the scale, massive scale. The footprint cannot be too big. We cannot do it too quick also. So I think the way of sustainable construction is to reduce the impact to the environment, especially when it comes to the rain. When the soil is open and the rain's coming, you don't want that waste to flow into the riparian and it start to destroy the downstream. So with that, we have to be very, very careful in the sustainable construction. And the stages of the construction is right now, 2024, we are hoping that we can build at least the palace, Istana, the road to the palace, few housing, and probably few ministerial buildings. And that will take probably about 15% of the whole land stock that we have. And what we are trying to do is to minimize. We use blocks by blocks. Yes, each of the area will have a containment area, so all the waste cannot go out to the river. And then we move in and out the construction material very carefully, and we isolate from each other, so we don't really do it at one big opening area. So that's probably how we try to avoid it. But it is very spot on because it is very delicate, yeah, when we build in the hilly and the mountainous area.
Of course,
Okay.
thank you, Pak Sibarani. It's very appropriate site development that you've got, yeah. Maybe all of the students and all of us can learn from that kind of phase.
Yeah.
And maybe some students may respond um, to the statement of Pak Sibarani, as some of students comes from Kalimantan too, so maybe they can give some kind of native
Yes.
insight for that. Yeah, please respond,
Yes.
students. And for Dr. Hakki, please respond for the question from Dr. Wing about the general question about how does the concept of sustainability is absorbed by the local community.
Okay,
Yeah.
first of all, thank you, Mr. Sibarani, for his inspiring presentation, and congratulations for the competition as well.
Thank you.
For the Professor Wing question, actually, it's a really good point, because to absorbing, to be aware of the sustainability and its reflection is it's happened really slowly in the publicity. For this topic, actually, all the governments has some encouragement policies, actually, but actually I can say that sustainability is not a thing that you can see by your eyes. Actually, it's actually totally energy consuming, or while we are producing, manufacturing something, how much energy we are consuming. I think the main part is about that. But there is also one question on below, actually, and another Turkish student asked about how we can popularize it. Actually, to popularize that concept, sustainability, maybe we can use its imaginary, a marvelous imaginary situation with the bonds with the green, actually, because especially it's not common to cover the roof with the green vegetation in Turkey. But when a building like the square shopping mall cover its own roof with the green, it makes sense for the people that they can actually wonder about why the designer covered their roof with the green vegetation, with the grass, and then they're going to criticize, discuss, and thinking about it. And maybe this imaginary can manage to aware the publicity much more, actually. But the main purpose is not actually its sustainable purpose is really less, according when you when you're thinking about the other perspective, other comprehensive perspective of the sustainability, you can count in actual economical suspect, social suspect also, as I mentioned before. But this imaginary part actually give the people a sense, a new issue to think about the sustainability. This is why we need much more building with covered green stuff, maybe just popularize it actually. But on the background, there is some much more serious issues about sustainability and its own design, I can say. As a response for Professor Ring, I can say it's really weak. The reflection of that sustainability awareness is really weak actually in Turkey, because we are get on so much about living or using regular concrete building, especially in a big metropole like in Istanbul. But that you can find when you go to the rural side of the Turkey. For example, when you go to the especially the touristical side, the southern part of the Turkey, you will see lots of individual enterprising for construct sustainable, totally sustainable building by using the own local material, using the passive systems as an architectural. I can say that in the metropole, its own DNA actually, it's there is no reflection of it actually, I can say.
Thank you.
I think I have responded to question by combining in one response.
Yeah, Dr. Hakki, thank you. Dr. Wing, is it quite responsive, or you may develop the discussion? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's very insightful. And then the next one will be about the question from Sare Oster. Thank you for the educative presentation, Professor. I have question 2. We all know the importance of sustainable buildings, but we also see that it's not yet widespread. So it's about the popularity, about the sustainability. Okay. But I guess, yeah. Maybe Dr. Hakki can respond, please.
Yeah. But I can maybe add something more for the Sare's question. Actually, to redesign everything is sometimes not possible, actually, especially when you are talking about the big cities, actually, because there are so many perspectives about it. It's not about just designing the building. You can also thinking about the people who's living there. You have to thinking about all the economic, all the financial the perspective, all the transformation by the same time. But if you put the earthquake in Turkey apart from somewhere else, it's a good way to use the building again with the different function when some of them fulfill its own original function actually, and we call it adaptive reuse. Maybe also the students can research about it, and it's, I think, one of the best solution to make the city redesign actually, not deconstruct or demolish everything and rebuild something actually.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hakki. Maybe Pak Sibarani would like to respond about the question because it's quite relatable, maybe. Please, Pak Sibarani.
Yeah, I think just to add to Dr. Hakki's comment about how to popularize the sustainability, I think we can look at 2 different players here. First is the government, the regulatory, where they can impose certain what we call it push for the industrial player or the government buildings. Like for example, a lot of our building in Indonesia, the government building of Indonesia now required to be in the certain rating of the green buildings. So they create what we call a demonstration effect for others, allowing others to appreciate, because a lot of the sustainable building right now require more money or more upfront investment. Yeah. So the second one is basically also the what I call the pull factor. The pull factor that coming from the people that has a like-minded opinion about this sustainable building, and they start to realize it is actually useful, or is it actually becoming positive for them, especially during the COVID time. I think it is the golden opportunity for us to allow certain things that usually, and especially in the tropical country like Indonesia, we love air condition, sir. So we don't like to be outside, especially during the hot sun. And if there is a rainy season, we are not also spending time outside. We are spending time mostly inside. We are crazy about staying in the mall, shopping mall. We don't like to be perspiring hot, right? So, but then I can check Singapore. Yeah, for example, Singapore is when the government put a very heavy so-called push for their people to adapt to the green building standard. And you can tell that they are rewarding, the government is rewarding the business people. If they can come to a certain green standard, they are rewarded with tax incentive. They are rewarded with bonuses or waive of rebates from many things. So and you can tell that Singapore is trying to become the leading country in the Southeast Asia to demonstrate that we are advancing this. And they create also an ecosystem of ratings and also incentives for the building materials. So when because they are stepping forward, other countries will be behind them. Like, for example, if we want to adapt a certain green system and has a proprietary that is coming from an industrial player, then you can only buy it in certain countries. That's how they monetize and they capitalize this sustainability into the future business. And because they know every country is already signing to the Paris Accord, Paris 30, right? Paris 21. And then they also have commitment to reduce energy consumption by certain times, which eventually it will come to them that they have to start. This is what I call the push factor. They are pushed to be more sustainable. But I think we just need to be consistent about going towards that direction and using this pandemic condition to become an example. Because right now, for example, a lot of people don't want to stay indoor now because the ventilation is not good. And the malls that is now opening up to the outdoor ventilation, especially when they can sit in the more spacious area or open air, is actually now more popular. Now this is the time for us to be able to demonstrate that use less air conditioning, use greenery, more oxygen flowing coming from the vegetation is good. So I think that's the pull factor that we can do as a residents, as also as a audience, yeah, and also as a players in the built environment, that this is something good for you, and we need to promote it more. Yeah, I think hopefully we can use this opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Sibarani.
Actually,
Please, Dr. Hakki.
I can make an adding also, Mr. Sibarani. Recently, actually, a couple of months ago in Turkey, there is a really big shortage because there was no rain for a long time, and because of the global warming, the Turkey getting really hot, and maybe a couple of decades later, lots of our soils turn into something like a desert. This is why actually governments, especially in Istanbul, they put a new rule to the legislation to collect the rainwater actually for each building. Sometimes you encourage people by giving some, advantages about financing the building, or we take the rebate the taxes or something else. And sometimes the government should put some restriction to the construction standards, especially the country like Turkey are really how can I say it? Our people are really leisure. Actually, it's in Turkey the construction is really arbitrary. Maybe you know it. This is why to restrict them is sometimes works. I think this is why I can give that recent example also.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hakki, for insightful discussion. And then we'll move on to the next response or question. I will invite Mbak Endah Kurnia to state your question because, yeah, to be clear about the question. Please, Mbak Endah, if you still hear me, if you can hear me. Mbak Endah Kurnia, please.
Hello.
Yeah, you may open the camera first. Activate your camera first.
Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you.
My webcam is.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
Yeah. Okay. Please proceed
can't
with
really
the
do.
question. Yeah.
Yeah. This is about biomimicry concept. How do you make sure it can work on the project? Because it has different subject on the character that involved. For the example, the natural system have like cells and animals, and the project that we might design have totally different subject as such as person or any form and issues. So what kind of thing we should do to make sure it can work?
Okay. Thank you, Mbak Endah. Okay. I guess
And
that will be. It's okay. I guess it will be the question for Pak Sibarani if you'd like to respond. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, thank you, Bu Endah. So I'll try to respond to your questions. Yes, it is true that it is. We are, if we try to take a research from the animals or from the natural sort of non-human sort of ecosystem, and then try to combine it, try to compare it with the human-centric research, is very different. What I'm suggesting right now is biomimicry is a big subject. Yeah, it's not only one aspect. It is actually a big umbrella of many things. And if you look it up, it actually came from even the early 1960s, when I think Kishiro Kurokawa mentioned about city as an organism. Yeah, and the city itself is actually almost mimicking the cells. Yeah, and then we also have the group of metabolism at that time, and I think in the early 1970s. So it is a research, an ongoing research. It's not exactly trying to copy one behavior or one phenomena from the natural and then try to apply it. There are several research leading to that. And for example, using the architecture of the shells and then try to create shell-like sort of like structures inspired by the Nautilus, for example. So there were several deep research that is almost like trying to copy things and then try to adapt it and use it. But what I'm embarking on right now is a notion of a wider sort of application of biomimicry, that in the principle and in the philosophy, if we are closer to the nature, we are in a better position, because right now we are so far away from it. So I'm trying to create sort of like a polarization. We want to polarize. We want to be closer to the natural point of view instead of the man-made point of view, and we can see the application in many different levels. It could be as what I call artificially, like for example, putting the photovoltaic on the top, and then that's done, right? Meaning the rooftop as like a branches of the trees, which is very literal. It could be one, but it doesn't need a lot of research to prove it. But then this is something that I would also think that coming to the first comments about sustainability, and I think there's one last comments about how to bring the sustainability into a way of life. So I think this is something that Mr. President Joko Widodo saying that the capital city is a transformational project. We want to be transformed into another thing, because he realizes that we at the current state, we are not living sustainably. We are not we don't have a city that is giving us a different examples. So the transformative effect of the capital city is to create a new attitude, and that attitude of biomimicry is trying to bring us closer to the nature and try to create a more nature based or nature principle based habitat, instead of coming in with the very I would say expansive but then a wasteful way of living of the common industrialized approach like us. Like for example, we go by using car everywhere, and we don't like to be under the sun, and we don't like to be perspiring, so we always use air conditioning. And we don't want to walk outside, we use car because we don't like the weather outside. So we need to come back to the way it was, like before technology coming. Everybody walk, everybody under the sun, and actually it's very good for your body because your vitamin D is only coming from the sun. If you don't have sun, you don't have any vitamin D, and you don't have the defense systems, etc. So all of this coming back to that. But there are several what I'm saying is there's another level of research which you can look up. Just look at the that the project in the Eden project in UK, yeah, they try to do a lot of biomimicry in there, and you can tell the architecture, the dome shape, it's all actually derived from certain research. And I can suggest to look at that, because we invited them during the FGD, and they told us this is something that at the end of the day is not only about trying to be closer to nature, they also try to educate people on how to be closer to nature, because they realize that kids today, especially the Generation Z, they don't look at nature the way the older generation look at nature. They only look at it from the laptop. Really they spend their time on the pool, on the muddle, or anything in the nature. So they say we are in the crisis in the future, that one day the next generation don't even know how to react to a real environment. So that's why they really think that the biomimicry is important for the survival of the humanity in the future. But I don't. I'm honestly, Mr. Mbak Endah, I don't have the research with me, but I have people who pointed to me that there are direction going there, and I think the way to prove it is to when we derive certain KPI of that. Like for example, our KPI is to use 80% of local materials that is coming from our local environment. Then it is already starting to form the requirement and also the brief for our building to behave in certain way. I think that's all for me now.
Okay, thank you, Pak Sibarani. So we'll proceed to the last two questions. First one will be from Humaira. We are learning sustainable design and we are trying to adapt it to our life. But we have so many old buildings, okay, and mostly concrete. Is there any way to adapt for these buildings? That will be the first question. And then Humaira asked to respond to about Samarinda City. So in Samarinda City in Borneo, there is so many forest area and human population is going bigger and they are going bigger to the nature. So is it possible something to build in a part of forest area without any damage to animals nature? So possible to share habitat with animals? Is it correct? Creating a place which people reach animals, or it will be damaging to the nature? Maybe this one will be for our two speaker, yeah. And then the last one will be from Mas Maizan Hadi. The question is, I have a question about Nagara Rimba Nusa. As you explained about Nagara Rimba Nusa, which has 70% green space, it seems as if it gives a different pattern to urban development. I believe this very brave or boldly. However, with regulatory policies, the government was still unable to handle the high growth and of the city, which is difficult to control. Is this one of the consideration from planning Nagara Rimba Nusa in responding to the community, which of course will be many interested in living there, even though they were unable to survive completely, especially the culture of the Indonesian people themselves. Maybe the first answer or response will be for Dr. Hakki. The first question from Humaira, please, Doctor.
Okay,
Thank you.
because I have no experience in Samarinda city and the last question, I think it's direct to the Mr. Sibarani. Okay, for the concrete building, actually, the situation is interesting because normally you can easily see lots of building constructed by the stone or the local material can survive for many centuries actually, but we know that concrete has a lifetime about something 70 or 80 years. That means if any of the earthquake or any of the explosion or other stuff happen, all the concrete buildings going to be old after the or fulfill its lifetime after 70 years or 80 years later. So that means actually in the end we have to transform or rebuild that building. But if that's the actually general habit of the all humanity actually to forget about something when you give them a really long time. Actually, no one going to interesting with a new concrete building or 20 years old concrete building because we know that as a human it can go as forever. But that question maybe turn into something like that. How we can adapt the sustainability in our life actually, because the building has actually the material has actually no guilt about the sustainability because we create them actually, we build them, we construct them. So there should be a possibility when a building, a concrete building with the function of accommodation will change in 20 years later into something else. This is why actually in my presentation I try to mention about some concept called flexibility. If the architect, if the designer can design the whole building except from its material or structural system as flexible, then it's easy to transform it into some different function, some new usage actually, and it gives much more lifetime to the building actually. But on the other hand, you can also adapt some sustainable behavior to your living actually. For example, you can try to find some solution for reducing your bills actually, for electricity bills, for water bills actually, and you can use some adaptive much more energy efficiency taps, shower head, or you can use some curtain jalousie or something else to control the sunlight actually coming from inside. That small addings actually gives your flats, your apartment or your office actually using or reducing the energy actually usage. But as I say, I think the main, the general framework of the sustainability should include much more longer time than a lifetime of a concrete building. Actually, this is why I'm talking about that its first producing method, its first embodying energy methodology is important. So after that, you have to think about the economical situation and social situation in a spaces apart from its construction structural material. So one of the important, I think, concept is flexibility, and the other is maybe the modularity to really use the buildings. Actually, I can say.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hakki. That's very interesting. I may say 3 points that you respond. That the one is the adaptive reuse, and then fixture optimization that goes into passive design, and all of utilization for the economic sustainability, and then social sustainability and physical sustainability. Thank you, Dr. Hakki. And then Pak Sibarani, would you please respond for the second question from Humaira about Samarinda City?
Can I say something?
Oh yeah,
This
Humaira, please.
question,
Sorry, Pak Sibarani.
this question doesn't have to be in the Samarinda City. We can think
Oh,
about
okay.
the world. I just want to say this.
Yeah. The context of what is it? Urban part. Yeah, maybe. So this doesn't
Okay.
have to think about Samarinda. Please, Pak Sibarani. Thank you.
Yeah, Miss Humaira, yeah. So I guess for the, yeah, I think the research about how we can live side by side between the human and the nature, that's where we try to, that's why one of our approach for the capital city is called forest city. It's not only a garden city. Yeah, for example, in Singapore, you have the concept of the garden city or the city in the garden. For us, it's a city in the forest. And how do we live side by side in the forest? In reality, there will be a certain degree of living side by side that we can really achieve. Like, for example, certain type of animals cannot be really next to the humans. Like, for example, we learned that in our side, we have the proboscis monkey. Yeah, the proboscis monkey is a very shy animal, and they live off from the nuts of the mangroves. But then you have also the different kind of monkey, the other type of monkey, which is very invasive to the human sort of environment. So those are the we really need to see how we can so-called create a different barrier, a different level of degree of living together with certain type of ecosystems here and there. Yeah, and there may be certain level of give and take at the end of the day. I don't think we can completely saying that we are like in the Tarzan and a type of movie, or Mowgli, where we live in the forest. Yeah, but the way we can identify which land that we take and which land that we leave for the animals, that's already giving us a very good example of we are not encroaching to the area that is not disturbed. For example, the capital city that we're designing, we only strictly take a land that is already disturbed. So it is green, but it is actually a productive forest green, meaning there is a very little environmental ecological values in those areas. We hardly see any even snakes in there, because snakes doesn't live off from that production forest. The production forest has a very little area for what we call the undercover. So there's no base, plantation at the base, and there's not much animal and ecosystem that live off from there because it's so monoculture. So we decided to take those area, but we are very conscious not to take the area that is still, virgin forest. We don't take that. So that's how we respect between one of another. How we do a step. We have a what we call it a setbacks zones. So for example, for animals like proboscis, is almost about 500-meter setbacks. We cannot be closer to them 500 meters, and we respect that. So there are those, I would say, way to live side by side, but the encroachment needs to be managed very well, and the deeper understanding of us, how the ecosystem work before us coming. Remember, they always there before us. Is something that we really need to learn as a young planners, as a designers, before we just coming and then just bulldoze everything. So I think a lot of learning that I also have during this period of time, when we were faced with the Ministry of Environment, who heavily criticizes us. Yeah, and then we were pushed back by 4 kilometers to go up to the hill, saying that stay away from our monkey area, don't go near to our mangrove. Although we say, the mangrove is already disturbed because you have so much palm oil there, and who gave the permit for the palm oil, right? There's somebody from the government give the palm oil to be there. So what would you do with that? So what we have in our program is we mandate those palm oil to be gone. You have to remove that palm oil, because there's nowhere near our capital city that we allow certain inconsistency to our principles to happen, right? So we really want to become the agent of change when we come in. When the government puts so much money in there, we also want to send the right kind of message, that saying that any the violation in the past, okay, that happened in the past is fine, but it won't continue to the future. So we want to all those so-called illegal permit that was given during the time when before the capital city move in, should be stopped and should be converted into a reforestation effort. So they need to become back to the natural state. So with that, I think that's probably the least that human can do, yeah, to create a bigger network of ecosystem. And another thing also, yeah, there is an ecosystem between the mountain and the coast, and what they call the green, the animal corridors, and it's big. It's as big as 1 kilometer wide. It needs to be contained. It needs to be provided. So what we have in our city, that's why it's a polycentric city system, to allow the green fingers to come in. So animal that moving between the terrain, although there are not many of them, needs to have a space, and they need to be allowed to, for example, if there is a road, they have to have a what we call the eco bridge, the tunnel. So the squirrels and all the monkeys still can cross without getting injured, and we provided that. So those, knowing that we are not just human dealing with ourselves, we allow also the animal to take course of their needs and also their activities. I think it's something that will be powerful if we have that kind of understanding.
Okay, thank you, Pak Sibarani. That will be maybe correlated to the last question from Mas Meizan Hadi about
Oh
how to
yeah,
respond to the development of the community, please, Pak Sibarani.
yeah, yeah. I think for I think one thing that I can share very quickly about this is the government want to use the capital city as a model, an exemplary. So a lot of our regulation is still not very environmental focused. Yeah, we are still struggling with whatever the condition that we have today. Many government leaders or the city leaders or the provincial leaders always complain about, hey, the problem was there before I become the mayors. It's so inherited by I mean from the previous leadership, or even the Indonesian inherited it from the Dutch, they say, because basically it was there before I was there. Now with this new capital city, there's no excuse, right? So we have to start. There's nothing there. We are the one who actually will make those changes. So we need to make it really, really exemplary. So by using this so-called model, we hope that the new city, the new town, not the existing town, yeah, the new town in Indonesia, because and I think we are envisaging about 10 to 30 new towns in the next 10 years by the national planning, uh, because we have to accommodate the number of urbanization and the new satellite cities that emerging around the big cities of Indonesia, which I think the code and also the government policies is not yet clear how to create a proper new city, new town. So I hope, and it is a hope that this Negara Rimanusa become the model for the new city, the prototype. So if they want to repeat it some elsewhere, this would be the way to go. And so instead of us being a different, we become the model that will be copied and used by other cities in the future, hopefully. And there's a interesting observation there from Meizan about the culture, yeah, and competently, how to live, survive competently. It is true. In this new town, I wouldn't say this is a typical town because it is a government-centric town, yeah. So how people survive in here, because they are given a task by the government to move there. They are forced to move there because the whole government moving there. There will be probably almost 500,000 people of the government officials that will be moving there. Then they will be coming from another island, not from East Kalimantan alone. So it is almost like, I would say, a very mandated cities. Yeah. Uh, I do have a question, and this is also genuinely still a question in my mind. If this is an open system of more so-called open market or capitalistic model, then whether the city can survive, I still think that it's going to be a difficult task, because to comprehend that you have to move by another island, 10 or 1,000 kilometers away, not in your native land, and you have to start a living in there. I think it's unthinkable. Yeah, only this could be probably only one time, but there will be there will be a lot of research that can come from this town when it's actually come into realization on how socially the people can live in there. And what our hope is, we can create a living environment that is new, modern, and again, the government say that the people who's going to move in here will be the millennials above, yeah, because in the next 5 years, all the baby boomers will be in retirement. I'm from Generation X. We may live in there probably for 10, 15 years, but most of the people who live there will be the millennials. So I think we hope that the living condition there will be exciting, will be new, will be fresh perspective, will be sustainable, that it become so powerful that people want to do it again. They want to create this as a repetitive effect. So I hope that answer Meizan's questions.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Sibarani. And I will invite Dr. Ilya and Dr. Asla to respond or give some kind of concluding remarks for this presentation and our public lecture, if you'd like, please.
I'm first, no? Asal.
Yeah, Ilya, please go.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hakki and my good colleague, Pak Sibarani. And I think this session is complete each other. From Dr. Hakki, which is much more concentrated on the building and the design, and Pak Sibarani, who try to expand with the landscape, so attachment of the building to the landscape in general. And it is very crucial, and critical moment during the design, both in building, the choice of technology, the choice of adaptation to the biomimicry, for instance, or the techniques that we should choose in order to respond and to excel the sustainability. And at the same time, the challenge to very careful choose of the landscape of the where the brown field can be used, even the green that it's already brownish, like a palm oil land that's actually is already damaged by the interference of the human. So this is kind of completing each other, and we really do hope that it will give the insight for the student who are now is trying to their best to choose, quote unquote, the site, and also to fit in their approach into building, the choose of how the building should be initially designed, and also how the landscape should be initially interference. So I think this is very insightful, and we do really hope that it helps students and also the general audience here. Thank you for both of the presenters. It's very insightful, and yeah, we are learning a lot from both of you. Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you, Dr. Ilya. Dr. Asla, maybe, please?
Yes, exactly. I agree with Professor Ilya. First of all, I would like to thank both of our presenters, Dr. Hakki Ozkan and Mr. Sibarani Sofian. Really, they give us really inspiring lectures. Well, I would like to mention that I'm really impressed by the smart city concept, which includes some kind of Internet of Things, EOT, and some kind of artificial intelligence insights, which are really impressive. I mean, for the future city concept, which I learned that it's going to be built. Lucky for Indonesian site, and congratulations again for winning this competition. And Hakki Hoca really give us showed us really interesting projects, which are, I think, really connected to our studio students' studio course projects, like connecting with the environment, thinking about the site, so on. Especially this Turtle Hospital, which I think it's a really good example for the students. So I again thank you. thank you for your fruitful relations. On the behalf of Fatih Sultan Mehmet Vakıf University in Istanbul, again, I would like to thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asla, for the remarks. And yeah, once again, I would like to thank you to Dr. Hakki Ozkan and Pak Sibarani Sofian, MUDD, for giving us insight and inspiration to do all the architectural design studio process. Yeah, please have a virtual applause, everyone. We'd like. Yeah, sorry, it's 3:30, so we just to enjoy the discussion very much, yes. But hopefully, it was a very fruitful discussion for all of us. But unfortunately, we have to close the discussion session. And after this, please have an Nasar prayer for ADS2 students in Indonesia, and then join the parallel class session for UII student, please. And yeah, all the information will be getting to the Google Classroom. Thank you so much for Dr. Hakki, Pak Sibarani, and Dr. Ilya, Dr. Asel. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum
Thank
warahmatullahi
you.
wabarakatuh.
All the best.